Jumbo and good morning, everyone. Welcome back to Safari Mack in Africa, where I'm your guide and your host, helping you make connections to the wild. Today, we continue our journey through Africa with the Cape Buffalo. Be sure to join me at the end of the episode for the reveal of our last animal on our first expedition in Africa. And as always, if you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the like and subscribe. Be sure to check out my other content. Be sure to send me an email if you have questions. And also be sure to check out my Facebook page. And be sure to stay tuned for special announcements as we continue our journey across the world. But for today, let's continue with part 2 of the African buffalo, or for our focus, the Cape Buffalo. Now, unfortunately, I was not able to find anything in terms of their ties to African culture. The only thing we know for certain is that in media or however they're portrayed, they're always portrayed as the same. Highly aggressive cattle with a bad temper or just a no-nonsense character. One character that we might know from popular media might be Chief Bogo from Disney's film Zootopia. But with that said, let's just begin with the wild things. Now, if you recall what I said last week in terms of their behavior, I mentioned how Cape Buffalo are known to do a thing called collective reasoning or collective decision making, meaning if one decides to do something, then the whole herd does. And that can also refer to when they're angry with either the loss of one of their own or if they see lions in the area. So how do I mean? If one member sees a pride, they will collect the whole herd and they will actually drive away the pride. And then they actually actively seek out cubs to kill so as a way to avoid future competition or endangerment to their survival. But let's just say that it's already too late and one has been killed. That's still not going to stop them. As you can see, this one Cape Buffalo has actually chased this male lion up a tree. Some biologists have reported seeing Cape Buffalo mobbing or driving lions or other predators away, in our case though, lions, up into trees and keeping them occupied for periods of almost 2 to 3 hours at a time. And so 2 to 3 hours. But it's not just lions that they get angry at. They're also known to attack people, unfortunately. They're said to actually they're thought to kill maybe around 200 people a year, which is considered to be more than what you would expect from either hippos or crocodiles that also are known to kill a good number of people each year. So this prompts a really good axiom in Africa's wild nature. Never come between any creature and their territories, or just never come close to any creature because you have absolutely no idea what to expect from any of them. Even the herbivores can be dangerous. However, despite their ferocity, they still face challenges along the way that right now pose big problems. One of the biggest problems for them would be poachers going into the preserves and illegally killing them to sell their parts or even to sell their meat on the underground market, which is what coins to a term bushmeat, where it's game of wildlife. Now here, also trophy hunting. It might seem bad, but there can be a good thing about it. So in nature, you have a huge area where the animals are protected, but there's only so much space and there's only so much that the land can provide. I mean, let's face it, if our entire Earth was an island, you can imagine how all creatures would be having to constantly fight for their share of what food the Earth has to offer. So by allowing people that actually go in and pay to kill these animals, which the fees can be around 10,000 US American dollars, it can help an ecosystem to maintain balance by keeping prey or predator numbers in check, as well as provide income for communities that are struggling. But it's not even just that alone. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned, they are known to kill people, around 200 people a year, and that can really cause problems. So you can also see why some people might just go after Cape Buffalo, maybe as a form of revenge. But they also face other problems. As mentioned in other previous episodes, habitat fragmentation, or when habitat is split in half, that can create big problems because they're not able to roam freely as they once did, ages ago. And thus this can lead to inbreeding and just many other problems. But there's another major problem. Back in the day when European settlers were coming to Africa to settle, they brought with them their livestock, which included, of course, poultry, goats, sheep, and of course cows. Now, along with these livestock, they also brought forms of disease. Unfortunately, one disease has actually caused major problems for Cape Buffalo, and that is bovine tuberculosis, or BTB for short. In fact, it's caused a lot. What it does is it really messes up with their system, and because cattle and buffalo are part of the same family of Bovidae, it can spread to other forms of bovines or other ruminant creatures, and thus it can affect their populations pretty badly. In fact, one report long time ago reported that a huge steep decline in the population really did a big toll on these creatures by the time it was fully over. Thankfully, we're still working to keep these creatures safe for the next 100 years. How are we doing this? As always, local governments are working hard to try and figure out how to keep people and wildlife in a form of coexistence, or if one affects the other, how we can make it a little bit better for the future. So one other problem that I forgot to mention is sometimes farmers who live along the wildlife can often go into their fields and eat their crops, and so these creatures can also be viewed as pests. So one form would be government paying compensation to the farmers for the loss of their crops or even their livestock. But there are other forms of how we're helping. We're creating wildlife corridors. Think of it as like a bridge between gaps, so that way the creatures can continue to roam freely and play their role in the ecosystem as they have done in nature for millions of years. But now, one of the biggest issues would be the disease. Bovine tuberculosis. You think that the easiest solution would be to vaccinate all of them. It's just not possible. Thankfully, though, we're constantly looking for ways to how we can help curb the disease and keep the rest of the populations healthy. In fact, there's actually one disease that Cape Buffalo don't even need to worry about as much anymore, and that's called rinderpest, which is this one right here. Believe it or not, it's actually considered to be the second disease or virus that has been eradicated right after smallpox, which is this one right here. However, in the end, the only way to really help these creatures and to learn more about them is research. Biologists are continuing to learn about how these creatures live, their place in nature, and just many other special secrets. So research, wildlife corridors, government, and figuring out how to curb disease problems is the best key to help these creatures survive. But even with that, thanks to their fiery nature, it seems like they're not going to be going anywhere for quite some time. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid that's all I have for the African buffalo. So, with that said, be sure to join me next Saturday as we finish our first expedition in Africa with the safari icon, the African lion, and my spiritual animal. Until next week, this is Safari Mack. I'll see you all out there in the wilds of Africa.